Hello, Managing Madrid family. Before we jump into today's Villarreal post-game podcast, you may have heard already the tragic news that a long time Managing Madrid staff member Om Arvin has passed away on May 18th. And those of you who were involved in the search efforts for Om, because he was missing for over a week, thank you for your efforts. We appreciate all of you. This is a big loss for everyone, and it's really devastating news. I don't really have the perfect words for this situation right now, but I have to speak about losing a brother. We all lost a brother this week. Om Arvin was one of the pioneers for not only managing Madrid, but a lot of the football analytics community, especially the women's soccer side of things. Om had a very high standard for putting out high quality analysis to the point where he could not release something, he could not publish something, he could not post something unless it was a very high quality and it was perfectly done. And he was a bit of a perfectionist in that sense, and he was a true artist in that he knew that there was an importance on putting out high level analysis but also making it entertaining, which is not easy to do. So Om was great in just putting out these really full length articles, these tactical breakdown videos, and of course his famous monologues on the Managing Madrid podcast that everyone appreciated. And he was a funny, witty guy. He put humor in it, which was much needed because when you're talking about football tactics and analytics, and it's not always the most entertaining thing to talk about, but he did it at a very high level. And Om and I, what brought us together specifically was our mutual love for Real Madrid. But it quickly turned out that, that's what brought us together, but it was the connection went way beyond that. And we turned into brothers, and I had the great honor of being at a stage with him three times in three separate podcasts. Om also traveled to Mumbai to do a Managing Madrid podcast solo. I was supposed to go to. Long story short, there were visa issues last minute, and I couldn't get in. And Om went there like a trooper, and held it down, put on a great show, and a lot of the Mumbai Penya members I know put out some beautiful messages on Twitter yesterday as well. He affected a lot of people, and he was loved by a lot of people. And just to go back to what I was saying earlier, he found it very important in just championing women's football. When Real Madrid Femenino finally became Real Madrid Femenino after that little transition they had from buying FC Tacon, and then they were playing as FC Tacon, and then eventually they rebranded everything as Real Madrid Femenino. He transitioned to making sure that this thing just takes off. Like, he wanted to ensure that women's football succeeds. And he gave birth to the Las Blancas podcast, which still is going strong. Yash and Kani are doing a fantastic job. And back then it was Om and Grant, and they were putting out articles about Real Madrid Femenino when I don't think anybody else was, certainly not in English. And he was always championing women's football. It was very important to him. And we're just really thankful for everything he's done. And above all, like, all these things I'm saying really are just take a back seat to the fact that he was a terrific human being. I'm sure everyone on staff, and I know they do because I've spoken to a lot of them individually, have stories about Om helping them. He went out of his way to help a lot of people. He was a fantastic brother to his younger brother. He was a fantastic son to his parents. He was a fantastic friend. He was a fantastic contributor to not just the football community, but also the football analytics community, the women's football community. And it's just a devastating loss. It was, but just to reframe it, it was an honor to know him. I'm so thankful that I I was part of the good old days, if that makes sense. With Om. When we were first doing this, for a long time it was Gabe, Om and I. And shout out to Gabe too. Much love to him. And Gabe's been very involved in trying to find Om. And Gabe and I have been talking, reconnecting a little bit over this. And me, Gabe, and Om, that was the crew for a long time. And then for a long time, when kind of Gabe became a full time lawyer, and he's got a very professional job. It was me, Matt, and Om, and that was the trio for years. And then Om kind of just eventually phased himself out, and then started doing. When he moved on from Las Blancas, he started to pursue kind of different parts of his career instead of just focusing on football. But to me, like, when I think about the good old days, in a lot of ways, it was pretty much the entire Om era. It was a lot of fun, and I'll forever be grateful. And instead of kind of just saying uh, that, I don't, I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to just reframe it by saying it was an honor to know him. I have a lifelong brother because I got to know him, and I'm just so privileged and so grateful for the time Om and I kind of shared this platform together. Om's family has sent a note, and I want to read because this is important. So Om loved women's football so much that it was his wish to start a GoFundMe, not for him, not for a funeral. He didn't want a funeral. This GoFundMe is just purely to support women's football. And the GoFundMe link is in the show notes. I'll also pin it on YouTube, and it's also on my Twitter page. And it won't be that hard to find, but I'm just kind of mentioning all these different platforms just in case you need it. You need to quickly try to find it. But it's in the show notes, and here's the note from Om's family. Donate to support Om Arvin's legacy in soccer. Om Arvin's passion was soccer, and he was a lifelong Madridista. Per his wishes, 100% of the proceeds from this fundraiser will benefit the National Women's Soccer League Players Association. For over 8 years, he dreamt, breathed, and lived soccer, becoming an acknowledged global expert on soccer tactics and analysis. His detailed, insightful articles delighted his readers and introduced many more to this wonderful sport. He particularly elevated women's soccer coverage and passionately advocated for reform in the sport. Om leaves behind a lasting legacy in the world of sports, while also shining attention on the plight of the oppressed and the forgotten, including his work to promote social justice, equality, and civil rights. Donations will be made in Om Arvin's name to the NWSLPA Emergency and Charitable Fund. This was written by Chris, his father, Prasanna, his mother, and Hansin, his brother. Please go and click on that link if you're interested in donating to support the cause. Om Arvin, gonna miss you, brother. Love you a lot. Sending lots of love to the Arvin family. And reach out to your loved ones, please. Just reach out to them. You don't need an excuse. Just reach out. Do it as often as possible, as much as you can. It matters way more than all this. We're talking about football and people kicking a ball around a grass field. We all love it. It is important, but there is something beyond this, no question. Please reach out to your loved ones. Om, I'll miss you. You're forever with us. Lots of love to you and your entire family. And thank you to Hridyam and Mehedi, who are actually doing the post-game podcast on this one, taking over. And I believe they have some personal notes on Om Arvin too to begin the podcast. So stick around, listen to the post-game show, their words on Om Arvin. And as an aside, I will be back May 24th-ish. So this is a couple weeks of me just kind of being away from podcasting a little bit because I'm just traveling a little bit. And I'll be back next week, and then May 24th, 25th-ish, we're going full force heading into the Champions League final and beyond. Hopefully the batteries will be fully recharged and we can give you more content in the coming days. All right, guys, enjoy the post-game show. Lots of love.
Hello and welcome to a Sunday edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. We're bringing you the post-game show from the 4-all draw at Villarreal. We're having to do this, or we're doing this at a very sad note, at a very devastated note, if I may, because our dear friend, as you all might know by now, our dear friend Om Arvind has unfortunately passed away. Uh, we heard the news yesterday, and all of us have been devastated from that point in time. Our thoughts are obviously with Om's family at this very difficult time. Football, covering football, all of this is uh, not really important at this time, but I'm pretty sure if Om was here, he would have wanted us to. And part of the reason why we're doing this is because he would have wanted us to. Uh, Hridyam, before I begin the discussion of today's podcast, I would like to say a few words about Om. Uh, my connection with Om, or like my introduction with Om, was like many of us through our mutual support for Real Madrid and our sharing the platform of football Twitter on Twitter. And when I originally started making visuals, Om was one of the first few people who gave me a shout out. And a lot of the things that I do right now, I probably would not be doing if Om did not give me that platform. He was an editor for many of my articles for Managing Madrid as well. He was such a key figure at Managing Madrid when he was active, and he always went out of his way to help others, as we have been seeing in so many people sharing their stories. uh, I've reached out to him to learn certain tactical concepts which he has shared his knowledge without any hesitation. And I do know that in the grand scheme of things of what has happened, uh, football knowledge of football or analysis of football is the least important thing right now. But Om was someone who we all loved as a person, as a friend, and also as a football analyst. And I do want to share a little bit of my thoughts about Om, the football analyst, because we're doing a podcast here. Is that there are people who can explain certain things about football or anything in general in very simple terms, or even in layman terms sometimes, for all kinds of audience. And there are people who can dive into the finer details of things, dive into the complexity of things, and even then explain it really well, so that it becomes something very easily consumable. Either it's in podcast format or either in its reading format. Om was someone who could do both, and I always remained fascinated by this aspect of how he dealt with things. That he could explain a really complex tactical phenomena or an event in real simple terms, and also then go into the nitty gritties of those things, and go into the finer details of those things, and bring out how complex these things can be, and then explain it. So uh, as someone who loves football, as someone who loves Liverpool, as someone who loves telling stories about football, I always looked up to Holmes' immaculate storytelling ability, how he explained things, how he did things. And I will definitely miss his presence. But to close it off once again, Om is in my prayers. His family is in my prayers at this very difficult time. And I wish and I pray that he rest in peace.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wish I had like a stronger connection with him because when I started off at Managing Madrid, he was on the verge of leaving Managing Madrid. I got a bit of a prominent role around 2022 when he obviously at the end of that year he left Managing Madrid to pursue other things. Um, I only spoke to him on Twitter like a couple times and in person once when he came to Mumbai for a podcast. But that's that's like not even 1% of the influence that he's had on me and my writing, because when he used to be really active on Managing Madrid, his articles were like this. As you said, it was so like complex, but at the same time, it was explained so simply, and it just like it was beautiful to read, and it inspired me to become one of the writers at the website, because when he was at his best, when he was at his like most active um, role at Managing Madrid, I was just a fan. Like I was 17 years old, 18 years old, just reading on, on Twitter. After every single game, I used to go to Kiyan's Twitter, go to his Twitter, just to read what they had to say about it, and then read their articles. And it just kind of morphed my writing into something that it wouldn't have been if it wasn't for Om, because like I obviously enjoy writing about tactical analysis quite a bit, but I don't think I'm not there yet, and I'm willing to improve. But just the fact that I'm where I am right now, it's a lot of it is because of Om, because he didn't know me, but he helped me so much. And yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna like if I'd be here if it wasn't for his influence, if it wasn't for his simplicity in writing, his just him talking about football. It kind of like started to push me into, you know, talking the way he did. You know what I mean? Like it was just yeah, very very nice. It was very inspiring to read his articles, and even as a person, from what I've seen, from what I've heard in countless podcasts, when I met him in Mumbai, he was such a good guy, such a funny, just down to earth. Everything was really good about him, and yeah, I mean, I wish I had like a I wish I had just gone to him and like, you know what, some sort of I need some sort of conversation with him, because I think that would have been helping. That would have been helpful for me as well. Like funny thing, I haven't really mentioned this anywhere. I actually tried to reach out to Om in the last couple of months. I wasn't able to, because I didn't really know, because he didn't follow me on Twitter, so I couldn't really talk to him, and I didn't have his email. But when I did when I did get his email eventually, he didn't. We couldn't really have a conversation. But yeah, I'm just it's been on my it's been on my on my mind all day. I was just about to go to sleep at like 5-6 a.m. when I saw that, and it just it was just really painful to just accept. Thoughts and prayers to him and his family, and I just hope they're able to recover.
Yeah, thanks, Hridyam, for sharing your thoughts. And just another note is his legacy at Managing Madrid was so big and so profound that I almost never felt like that he was not active with Managing Madrid, because he has like written so many great articles, did so many great podcasts, laid the foundation to the podcast to be as great as it is right now, and for us to then carry it forward. For me, it always felt like that almost somewhere around the corner he will pop up on the podcast someday and we'll have a chat about it. It never felt like that he was not active with Managing Madrid, even when he was not. So I guess we would have to keep that feeling going on, and hope and pray that wherever he is, he's in a better place. Hridyam, we are going to start discussing about today's game, a 4-4 draw for Real Madrid after quite some time, after a pretty good string of La Liga results. And then again, in the context of La Liga, this result does not really mean much. However, we did see individual brilliance from both sides in this particular game, and some not so brilliant moment from Real Madrid as well, which I'm pretty sure we will discuss as we go along. First of all, Arda Guler, once again, a couple of goals, two really good finishes, I would say. And I was just reading up on Twitter, I think La Liga Systems mentioned that Guler's tendency to be an outlet very deep is a very surprising and refreshing change in the attacking dynamics of our attack, particularly because most of our attackers, be it Jude, Vinicius, or Rodrigo, they're the type of players who like to drive with the ball. They're not really traditional outlets, but we see some of those tendencies in Guler, and that is why he is at the right time, at the right place in many of these occasions where he has actually scored 6 goals from 6 shots, which is kind of unbelievable. So really happy for him on the Real Madrid side of things. And on the other side, Alex Sorloth basically putting the Pichichi debate to bed pretty much with 1 game to go. He was equal on 19 goals with Jude Bellingham, 1 behind Artem Dovbyk before this game started. Then he went on and scored 4 goals. And now he's leading the Pichichi with 23 goals. And I'm pretty sure that's probably it. He is going to bag it. And if he does, I think it is deserved. He did not have as great of a first half of the season, but in the second half he really did pick up his numbers and racked up loads and loads and loads of goals. I'm not going to go really chronologically what happened in this game. First off, let's start with your overall feedback on Real Madrid's performance as a team, and then we can analyze a few of the individual performances heading into the Champions League final, of course.
To be honest, this game is like it was kind of, I don't want to say insignificant, but in some ways it was. It didn't really matter much to Real Madrid to get a win or to just do well so that they stay on the top of La Liga. They've already won it, so it doesn't matter. And I think Carlo Ancelotti did put it in the in his post-game quotes that the objective was never to win this game. It was just to improve the intensity of the players and just focus on having a good game, having some good intensity, and avoiding injuries. That was the main motive, and they got it. To be honest, the first half I think it was really, really nice. I think a few minutes, I think Villarreal were dominating the game, but apart from that, I think Real Madrid grew into the game. They scored 4 goals in 1 half, and yeah, it was just very direct football. I think it was kind of what Ancelotti wanted from this team, so that they just push as much as they can, and they just do as well as they can in the first half, so that the intensity stays up, and they keep scoring goals to have some more confidence. Obviously, Guler was, in the first half, he was just unplayable. Yeah, I mean, second half, it was just a bit of like, the game's really open. So even though it was 4-1, it felt more like a basketball match than a football match. It was so open. They scored 3 goals in I don't even know how many minutes, 10 minutes?
Yep.
And
something like
so
So from minute 48 to minute 56, they scored all.
That's literally basketball in football. Like it just happened. Real Madrid showed that their defense wasn't really incredible. They had some errors, obviously. They had some mistakes, which is kind of expected in a game like this where there's nothing to play for. But yeah, I think the second half and the last 10, 15 minutes, they were just trying to control the game so that they don't lose it, so that, they still have the unbeaten streak going, which is, it doesn't matter that much, but it does matter in terms of confidence, I think. But yeah, I didn't really focus on the tactical side of the game that much, except for the fact that Real Madrid were better in the first half and they were not really good in the second. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I wasn't really looking for any specific patterns, because these games, in some way, again, I don't want to demean an official La Liga game, but in some sense, these games are even more inconsequential than a preseason friendly. And why I say this, because in a preseason friendly, you are actually trying to do something tactically. You're trying to, if you have something new to try out, that's the game where you try that out. But at this juncture of the season, where Real Madrid have already racked up the league, they have a big final to play, and they're not going to do something extravagant or not really, reinvent the wheel within this couple of games, Real Madrid will, even in the final that we are so anticipating, even there, Real Madrid will try to play to their strengths. So they're not really going to experiment a lot. This is mostly about giving necessary minutes all across the players, keeping them fresh physically, and doing what you can. So we see a few interesting things like Vinicius and Rodrigo didn't play at all. They were completely rested, which is completely fine. I think that's the way it should have been anyway. Rodrigo did come on for Brahim Diaz. We also saw Nacho and Camavinga coming on. Militao was replaced by Nacho, and Militao has become a bit of a meme today. But I think even with the jokes, with the frustration and whatnot, all Real Madrid fans and people basically do understand that this is what is expected of Militao at this time. Basically, you can't really judge him too much based off of these performances. Militao's season basically starts next season. Whatever we're getting from him right now is basically just to bring him up to speed to match fitness and prepare him for next season. And I think Carlos sees that in that way as well. Although he's a manager who would never say it out loud that which player I'm going to start or not. But it pretty much goes on to show that Militao right now has far less confidence from the coaching staff for the final than Courtois, and which I think is fine. It's a goalkeeper's position from a physical standpoint is obviously much more different than that of a center back. So if Militao doesn't start and Nacho starts, that is a completely understandable decision. And also whoever Carlos starts in the goalkeeping position in the final as well, that would not be a decision based on any kind of emotion. That would be a decision based on completely, fitness, and that'd be a footballing decision as well. Apart from that, we saw Mario Martin come late into the game for Luka Modric, who had yet another standing ovation, and not just a standing ovation from the Villarreal fans; they were actually chanting his name. So, which was nice to see. Anything specific you caught from Carlos' post-game quotes, or anything interesting you would like to discuss?
Let me just pull them up real quick. It was most of it was just basic stuff that Mm-hmm. The one thing that caught my eye was the fact that he mentioned that I think he thinks Guler closes the goal is more effective, and he scores a lot with not that much space, and playing him in an advanced position is better. That's what he said, and I'm just bringing this up because everyone, not everyone, but rumors on various websites they've just mentioned that they see Guler, Real Madrid see Guler as a Modric replacement, and Ancelotti's he's just talking about how good he is at an advanced position. So it just makes me wonder if Ancelotti sees him as a Modric replacement, at least at the moment. I think he's a different player. Obviously he can adapt to that centre mid position, but it's all about where he's the most, consistent. What do you think of those quotes?
Yeah, I think how he mentioned about Guler's efficiency with little to no space is interesting, and that is one of his great traits, I would think. Because if you think about the first goal today, yes, there was a lot of space in front of him, but he didn't really take any time at all to let the shot go. So that was really cool. That was really cool. Great to see that kind of a finish, and even from a narrow angle, his second goal was great. But I am not going to read too much into Guler's positioning just yet, because Ancelotti has tried these things with players before, and for some players he has stuck to that, and for some players he did not. For example, for Di Maria, he did bring Di Maria down to the midfield, and then Di Maria had a great season in the midfield. But then again, he tried the same things for a couple of games for Asensio. Tried to play Asensio as an 8, which didn't really work out, so he didn't really continue with that. So I think Guler is younger than both Di Maria and Asensio, what they were when those experiments were done. I think Guler would go through much more experimentation at Real Madrid, specifically given the minutes he would be allotted next season, given the kind of roster we would have next season. He would kind of have to make do at whatever position he is being played at. So I'll probably wait a little bit longer on reaching a conclusion to where his best position is. And as with Carlo, I think because even next season, it would be difficult for Guler to find probably minutes closer to a starter. But whatever minutes he's played, I think he would have to show his versatile qualities there as well. Carlo did talk about Militao. He said that we can say that the two center backs have suffered. Militao is approaching 100%. We have 2 weeks. We can make it to the final. So I think he's still talking about the final, that whether or not they see Militao for the final or not. Having just said what we discussed about Militao, again, I think if Real Madrid do start Militao, once again, I don't think that would be a decision based on emotion at all, that he's a starter, he should start the final because he's a starter. I think the team will look at both Courtois and Militao enough from a physical and footballing point of view before taking that decision. What do you think?
I think the same. I don't think he's going to look at emotion. I think it's going to be more like, what, if he's fit, if he's like match fit and he can play 90 minutes in the biggest game of the season, then I will start him. It doesn't matter if he's played 40 games or not. I think it's just about like him at the moment. If he's at his best, I'm talking about both Militao and Courtois. He will. I think they will start if they're at their best. But I just don't really see Militao starting, to be honest. I'm not sure, but I don't think he's played the full 90 minutes in any game so far. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think he has played one of these games. Like after winning the title, I think he has played one, if I'm not mistaken. But he can be right too. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like he has played just one, and that's also like after winning the league, probably.
Yeah. I think obviously looking too much into these Militao minutes is just it's not fair to Militao. He's had a really, really difficult injury, and then he had to recover. It's obviously different for a centre back to come back to his best form after an injury like that. So I think him playing the way he's playing is completely fine. I think the next season is where you judge him like properly about like how he's recovered fully, if he's match fit or not. But that's also why I wouldn't start him in the final. I think Nacho, it's not about emotion. It's not about him being the game being his last game for the club. It doesn't matter. I think he's just going to look at the two players and he's going to make a decision on merit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Nacho should start the final. With Courtois and Lunin is a bit different because Courtois has looked kind of more up to speed than Militao. Obviously, I wouldn't say he's like 100% yet, but he's much closer to 100%, I think, than Militao is, which is I think is understandable because they're two different positions, two different players as well. If you were if you were asked who you're going to start in the final, what would you go for?
Yeah, so I think the 11 players that start the first half against Real Betis next weekend, that is going to be the starting 11 of the final. And I do think Courtois will make it. And I am inclining towards Courtois because what I've seen, I feel like he will be ready for the final. And also from a legacy standpoint, Courtois, the last time we were in a final, he was so brilliant. And he has actually shown that he can pull out those saves. He had a few good saves. I think a record number of saves in the last game, if I'm not mistaken. Not all of them were awfully difficult, but I think he broke some kind of record that Iker previously had held. So in the Lunin case, I think I'm inclining a little bit more towards Courtois. But then again, if Lunin starts, I'm not going to be like shaking as if like Kepa had started the final. That's that. So, but in the case of Militao and Nacho, I'm a bit more, I would say, like drastic. I do want Nacho to start the final because Militao's a lack of rhythm is much more visible and apparent than Courtois, or even if Courtois hasn't. So I think Nacho for sure, and Courtois and Lunin, I don't really mind. I'm just slightly inclining towards Courtois, but I don't really mind either of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say I think like Lunin has had a really good season, and you fully if he starts in the final, no one will mind it. I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. I just think Courtois, if he's at his best, is better than Lunin at his best. So I think that's what Carlo is going for as well. But it just depends on whether Courtois is at his best, which he's looked good. He had 10 saves last game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just if Courtois starts next game, then it means Lunin's season is practically over. Like, this was his last game of the season, because if he starts the next game, he probably would start the final as well.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you. It was my next point actually that whoever starts the first half of the Betis game is going to start the final, because I think he will rest a lot of players in the second half, but he would like to start Vinny. He would like to play Bellingham, because we've seen it before. When they don't play for a certain amount of time, they come back and they're a bit slow to start the game with. I think that is why playing them a week before the Champions League final is very important. I think Vinicius would be, Vinicius he's in the form of his life, and Bellingham he really needed this break, didn't he?
Yeah.
Having 10 days? I'm not even sure when was the last time he played, but this break would have done really well, wonders for him. I think he's going to be really, really good in the final. I'm not sure who's going to win. I hope Real Madrid win, but I don't know. I just have this feeling about Bellingham playing the game of his life against Dortmund. Don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't want to jinx him though.
and I think even in terms of substitutes in the next game, I think we'll definitely see the starting 11 that'll start in London. And also, I would even go as far as saying that the 5 substitutes that we will see, those will be the 5 guys that Ancelotti would be even counting on as his five guys off the bench, if he needs 5. Hopefully he doesn't. On that note, Hridyam, we're going to close this one out here. It was a pleasure. Thanks for hopping on the call. Listeners,
thank you for having me.
Enjoyed this episode on across various socials and platforms. Hope you guys had fun. Until the next time, we'll wrap it up here. Take care.